Prophecy. Okay, Trump says the Trump administration will be pulling out Open Skies surveillance treaty over Russia. Okay, so that's the big news. Trump admin pulling out of Open Skies reconnaissance treaty over Russia violations. So I guess Russia has got caught doing some tricky things, and so we're gonna see what takes place, about it. But I'm also going to let you guys know what the treaty means, the Open Skies Treaty means, in case some of you don't know. Okay, this is a commercial.
Today, we're adapting to staying home and finding new ways to take care of ourselves.
Can I skip the commercial?
Because when caught in early stages, it's more treatable.
Maybe
so
not.
Don't wait.
You guys going to have to bear with me until the commercial ends.
Done at home. You can request it from home, too. Ask your prescriber.
But I want to read some information to you guys also.
Online prescribers at requestcologuard.com.
As a matter of fact, let's go to that right fast.
Plus an average risk for colon cancer, not high risk. False positive and negative results may occur. Ask about Cologuard today.
Let me turn this down some. Okay, well, let's go back to it, okay?
Russia and us have developed very good relationship. As you know, we worked on the oil problem together. I think we have a very good relationship with Russia, but Russia didn't adhere to the treaty. So until they adhere, we will pull out. But there's a very good
relationship,
chance we'll make
right?
a new agreement or
our ally.
do something
I don't
to
think
put that
so. I don't trust
together.
him.
But whenever there's an agreement that another party doesn't agree to,
we have
many of those agreements around the world where it's a two-party agreement, but they don't adhere to it, and we do. When we have things like that, we pull out also. That's why with the arms treaties, if you look at the arms treaties,
we run everything.
We're probably going to make a deal with Russia on arms treaty, and China will be maybe included in that. We'll see what happens. But we have a lot of things. But when we have an agreement, when we have a treaty, and the other side doesn't adhere to it, in many cases they're old treaties, old agreements, then we pull out also. So I think what's going to happen is we're going to pull out, and they're going to come back and want to make a deal.
Because it's null, it's void if everyone doesn't agree.
And you can see that with respect to oil and what's happening with oil.
Okay, so
of a possible second wave of COVID-19 infections, there is still no unified federal plan to test, contact trace, and ensure vital services are not interrupted. But now there is a growing support for expanding and funding national service programs like AmeriCorps to do exactly that. Joining me now are Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti and Delaware Democratic Senator Chris Coons, who are both...
That is not related to what I'm talking about, but I was just seeing what they were talking about since this is the MSNBC News. Okay, let me get back to what I was talking about. The Open Skies Surveillance Treaty, okay? A lot of you people see this on the news, but you don't know exactly what this is. So the Open Skies Treaty that Trump was talking about, let me read it. Let me see if I can read it clearly. It's so hard to read it when I'm taping. On March 24th, 1992, the United States, Canada, and the 22 European nations signed the Treaty on Open Skies. The United States officially ratified the treaty on November 3rd, 1993. The treaty has not yet entered into force. However, because Russia, Belarus, and Ukraine have not yet ratified it, President Bush revived the Open Skies concept in May 1989. Okay, so who started this? The President Bush revived the Open Skies concept in May 1989. Okay, so at the time, the United States believed that the Open Skies concept would reduce the chance of military confrontation and build confidence in Europe by providing participants with the ability to collect information about the military forces and activities of others in the treaty. Okay, everything stems from Europe. That's the key word, Europe. In addition, even though the United States and Russia can collect this type of information with sophisticated observation satellites, open skies, observation flights will provide nations who do not have their own satellites with a way to participate in the data collection and confidence building process. Okay, you know why they're collecting the data, or they're using a data collection confidence building process. And that's because since we are the highest, the United States, we must spy on everybody else. We must know everything that somebody else is doing in case that there is an attack, that someone tries to come and attack the United States, okay? The party to the Treaty on Open Skies have agreed to permit unarmed aircraft conduct observation flights over their entire territories. The United States Air Force has modified 3 C-135 types and wait, did I read that right? C-135 aircraft for this purpose. Open Skies aircraft can be equipped with 4 types of sensors: optical, panoramic, and framing cameras, video cameras. This is all the technology that they have, okay? Okay, so let's read that again. The types of sensors that they have is the optical, panoramic, and framing cameras, video cameras, infrared line scanning devices, and sideways looking synthetic aperture radars. These sensors must be based on off-the-shelf technology that is available to all participants in the treaty. The treaty includes quotas that specify maximum numbers of observation flights that can occur within each nation each year, and the maximum number of observation flights each nation can conduct each year. Right, because these treaties are made, I don't know if they're made from year to year, but like Trump said, if a party decides to breach the contract or to not adhere to the contract, doesn't decide to keep it, then it's already it's already void. They all have to drop it, because how does one party stay in, but the other parties don't? And the participants, how does one participant stay in when they were all supposed to be in agreement? Then all of a sudden one drops. No, it cannot move forward like that. Let's continue. The treaty includes quotas that specify maximum numbers of observation flights that can occur within each nation each year, and the maximum number of observation flights each nation can conduct each year. So it is each year, okay? It's monitored. For the United States, these quotas are 42 flights per year. However, only 4 flights will occur over U.S. territory in the first year that the treaty is in force. In addition, the United States will conduct only 9 observation flights during the first year of treaty implementation. 8 over Russia and Belarus, and 1 in conjunction with Canada over Ukraine. Okay, let's stop right there for a minute. This is what I want to show you guys. Let me see if I can get it to play. Okay, Trump expects new open skies deals after the U.S. leaves.
Russia and us have developed very good relationship. As you know, we worked on the oil problem together. I think.
So Liz Mobile just sent me this solar wireless battery pack. I'm excited.
Well, hold on. They're sending commercials.
I really like.
Let me just read some other information while it's a commercial. On March 24th, 1992, the United States, Canada, and 22 European nations signed a treaty on open skies. 1. This version of an open skies treaty has grown out of a May 1989 proposal by President George Bush. Okay, he envisioned an agreement that would promote cooperation and build confidence between the 2 Cold War blocs, NATO and the Warsaw Pact. Because the Warsaw Pact dissolved before the treaty was completed, it emerged as an agreement among the European nations, the United States and Canada, rather than as a treaty between 2 opposing alliances. The Open Skies Treaties has not yet entered into force. However, because Russia, Belarus, and Ukraine have not ratified it, Okay, and I hope I'm not repeating myself, but I just wanted to give you guys an understanding of what exactly that this is. Okay, each of the parties to the Treaty on Open Skies will permit unarmed aircrafts operated by any other party to be flown over its territories to observe military forces and activities by allowing the participants to gain insight and understanding into the military capabilities of potential adversaries. The treaty can, according to its supporters, build confidence, reduce the chance of military confrontation, and encourage cooperation among the nations of Europe. Okay, and I don't think China wants to comply. Okay, that's another situation with Kim whatever his name is. Under the terms of the treaty, observation aircrafts from the other participants can conduct up to 42 flights over U.S. territory each year. Russia, too, will be subject to 42 flights. So they will be one of them. Okay. The other participants will host between 2 and 12 flights each year. Consequently, if the Open Skies Treaty remains in force for many years, the United States could host dozens of visits by other participants virtually. So that means the U.S. is running this, and if they're not able to, they will be hosting it. So they're in charge, and then they will have other parties that's under them also in charge to observe, these particular flights and these watching over the other people, our allies and everything else in the air to make sure that we are not under attack some type of how in the near future or, presently and in the near future. Consequently, if the Open Skies Treaty remains in flight each year, I'm repeating myself. I'm sorry. You know what? I don't have all the latest technology to record. So you guys bear with me. I use my phone and then I'm looking at this screen and it's horrendous. Okay. Let's skip down to virtually. Virtually all observers agree that these flights will pose no security threat to the United States. What I just say. However, questions about the presence of the foreign military aircraft and the purpose of the observation flights may come up when the observation flight occur. This report provides basic information about the rationale for the Open Skies Treaty, the provisions that govern its implementation, and the capabilities of the aircraft and sensors that will be used during the observation flights. Okay, this information can help Congress review the implementation of the treaty. It may also help members respond to concerns that constituents may raise about the presence of Open Skies Open Skies aircraft and observation flights around the country. The first section of this report briefly reviews the history of negotiations on open skies. The second discussion key provisions of the 1992 treaty. The third review, the current status of the treaty and its implementation. Okay, and this is the background. The idea for a treaty on open skies first appeared in 1955, when President Eisenhower suggested that the United States and Soviet Union permit aerial observation flights over each other's territory. Okay, in principle, aerial observation flights would permit the two nations to reduce their reliance on worst-case estimates of the other side's military capabilities and to demonstrate that they were willing to cooperate with each other to ease tensions. Right, okay? At the same time, in the era before the development of observation satellites, aerial observation flights were the only way for the United States to gain needed intelligence information about military forces and activities inside the Soviet Union. Yeah, because America has to spy on everybody. We have to know what everybody is doing because we are the head and not the tail. According to the Bush administration, the Eisenhower proposal, knowledge of the Soviet Union, to the Soviet leadership rejected President Eisenhower's proposal, arguing that the observation flights would simply legalize espionage. See, everybody's worried about getting spied on because everybody is making their own warfare. And, you know, no one wants to be over one another, but everyone hates the United States because we are the head. Like I said, we are the head. President Bush reviewed the open skies concept in May 1989. At the time, as the Cold War was ending, the United States believed increased transparency in Europe would reduce the chances of military confrontation and build confidence. According to the Secretary of State, James Baker, open skies would promote and consolidate the international trends toward openness already in train. Yeah, 3. Of course it's already in train. Yeah, it's already in effect. It's been in effect since 1955. The Bush administration also viewed open skies as a test of Soviet willingness to move forward in a cooperative relationship with the United States. Yeah, because if they don't want to cooperate, what does the United States do? We make them cooperate, okay? That's why we are the land of the free. I mean, it could be no other way. According to President Bush, such unprecedented, I can't even say this word. You guys see it. Let me try that again. Such unprecedented, I can't even say it. I'm sorry, y'all. Wow. Territorial access would show the world the true meaning of the concept of openness. The very Soviet willingness to embrace such a concept would reveal their commitment to change. 4. And I'm not going to read all of this, but let's skip down. Unlike the bilateral 1955 version of the Open Skies, the negotiation that began in February 1990 include all the members of the NATO and the Warsaw Pact 5. The United States sought a pact-to-pact treaty with the United States and NATO conducting observation flights over the Soviet Union and Warsaw Pact nations and vice versa. However, as the negotiations proceeded, it became evident that the Eastern European nations were not only unwilling to rely on Soviet technology to collect data, but were also interested in conducting their own observation flights over Soviet Union's territory. 6. As a result, after abortive Soviet coup in August 1991, the participants altered their approach and produced a treaty among nations rather than a pact between alliances. Each of the parties to the treaty can collect information about and improve its understanding of a military force, of the military forces and activities of any of the other participants. Okay, and let me just see. Let's go back to what he was saying. And if you guys want to look this up, this is where I got this from. FAS.org/nuke. That's NUKE//OS/news/OST-96.htm. That is a lot, but yeah, it's the Open Skies Treaty, okay? Here we go. Let me rewind it.
Russia and us have developed very good relationship. As you know, we worked on the oil problem together. I think we have a very good relationship with Russia, but Russia didn't adhere to the treaty. So until they adhere, we will pull out. But there's a very good chance we'll make a new agreement or do something to put that agreement back together. But whenever there's an agreement that another party doesn't agree to, we have many of those agreements around the world where
right.
It's a two-party agreement, but they don't adhere to it, and we do. When we have things like that, we pull out also. That's why with the arms treaties, if you look at the arms treaties, we're probably going to make a deal with Russia on arms treaty, and China will be maybe included in that. We'll see what happens. But we have a lot of things. But when we have an agreement, when we have a treaty, and the other side doesn't adhere to it, in many cases they're old treaties, old agreements, then we pull out also. So I think what's going to happen is we're going to pull out, and they're going to come back and want to make a deal. We've had a very good relationship lately with Russia, and you can see that with respect to oil and what's happening with oil.
So you guys hear some of that. Let me pause this. Okay, so that is the Open Skies Treaty. Okay, let me go back to some information. I wasn't going to tarry too long. I wasn't going to make this too long. I just wanted to give you guys some background. Okay, so remember that the idea for a treaty on open skies first appeared in 1955 with President Eisenhower, okay? And let me go up. It was this one part I wanted to show you. Let me see. Okay, let me read this. The Open Skies Treaty specifies that open skies observation flights will take precedence over regular air traffic in the air traffic control system. If another aircraft plans to fly along the same route at the same time as the open skies aircraft, the other aircraft must alter its route. This is because a change in flight path or altitude of the open route. This is because a change in flight path or altitude, altitude of the open skies aircraft could enhance or degrade the sensors operating on the aircraft and therefore undermine the objectives of the observation flight. So you already know aircrafts cannot cross each other up in the air. And so, like I say, the U.S. is dominant. So they are going to be monitoring, everything that is up in the air, that is up in the sky, okay? The U.S. Federal Aviation Administration has stated that giving precedence to open skies aircrafts will pose no threat or inconvenience to civil air traffic in the United States. Well, it's different now since Corona, see? So that's why things are changing behind the scenes. And this is one of the distractions during all this Corona. They are negotiating behind closed doors. Okay, let's continue. It frequently gives precedence to specific aircrafts, such as the president's airplane, Air Force One, without passengers on other aircrafts, knowing that their altitude or flight path has been altered. Okay, in addition, the Air Force has concluded a formal agreement with the FAA that establishes a policy for giving precedence to open skies flights. According to the Air Force, these policies work well during numerous open skies training and demonstration flights. Okay, and there was something else I wanted to read too. Determining passive and active quotas. It was something. Hold on, let me find it. Okay, this is what we got in the air. U.S. aircraft. The United States is planning to equip 3 aircrafts specifically for open skies observation flights. The first is already operational. It is based at Offutt Air Force Base in Nebraska and is used to conduct testing and training flights for open skies personnel. Once the treaty enters into force, this aircraft will be used for training flights and as a backup aircraft for observation flights. The other 2 aircrafts will reach full operational capability during 1996. The first is currently conducting ground tests and should be delivered to the Air Force by early spring 1996. So all of these were already in effect. The second will deliver later in the year. But like I said, they change each year because they add and they deduct, depending on the allies and the nations around us. Okay, permitted sensors. Open sky aircraft can be equipped with 4 types of sensors: optical, panoramic, and framing cameras. Cameras for still photography. And now they got drones, with a ground resolution of 30 centimeters, around 1 foot video. Cameras with a ground resolution of 30 centimeters, around 1 foot. Infrared line scanning devices with a ground resolution of 50 centimeters, around 20 inches, and sideways looking synthetic aperture radar radar SARS with a ground resolution of 3 meters, around 8 feet. According to U.S. officials, these sensors will be able to recognize major pieces of military equipment. This has been characterized, for example, as the ability to tell the difference between a tank and a truck. This level of capability is not sufficiently detailed to reveal technical information about the major items of equipment, nor would it permit identification of particular models of a category of equipment. In most instances, 22, maybe that's feet, I'm thinking, 22 feet. I know that couldn't be inches. Okay, and so yeah, so they're trying to better this equipment as years go by, as decades go by. So you can imagine where we are right now. Okay, and this is some of the other part I just wanted to read. The treaty contains several provisions to address concerns about the possible presence of unauthorized sensors on board Open Skies aircraft. First, at Russia's insistence, the treaty permits any nation to request that its own aircraft be used for observation flights. Second, the treaty permits the nation hosting the observation flights to fully inspect the observing nation's aircraft to ensure that it does not carry covert sensors, and to conduct calibration exercises to ensure that the sensors do not have capabilities in excess of those permitted by the treaty. Right, in excess of those. Right, they cannot be higher than us. Finally, when the nation's conducted the observation flight prepares its mission plan, it must make sure that the aircraft's altitude throughout the flight, when combined with the calibration of the sensors, it's consistent with the limits on sensor resolution. Cameras would have better resolution if the aircraft flew closer to the ground. Okay, and to close this up, the original 25 signatories of the Open Skies Treaty include all of the members of NATO and the former Warsaw Pact, along with Russia, Ukraine, Belarus from the former Soviet Union, the other newly independent states from the former Soviet Union, including the Baltic states, can join the pact at any time. Georgia and Kyrgyzstan, I cannot pronounce that, Kyrgyzstan, have already done so. Yeah, because they have to be in compliance and agreement. All other European nations who are members of the Organization on Security and Cooperation in Europe can apply to join the treaty during the first 6 months after the treaty enters into force. The Open Skies Treaty also contains provision to expand beyond Europe, the United States, and Canada, everywhere, I told you. After the treaty has been in force for 6 months, the Open Skies Consultative Commission can consider a request to join from any other nation that is considered able to contribute to the objectives of the treaty, because the OSCC must make its decision by consensus. A nation's application to join treaty will be rejected if any one of the current participants objects. Right, so back to with Russia, there had to be some type of objection because they pulled out. They have been doing sneaky stuff on the under, and so Trump is pulling their card, and so he's trying to rectify the situation and move forward. Let me just give you guys a breakdown right fast as I sign off. And so you guys have an understanding of what the news is talking about when they come up with something foreign to our ears and we don't know what it is. The Treaty on the Open Skies entered in force on January 1st, 2002, and currently has 34 party states. It establishes a program of unarmed aerial surveillance flights over the entire territory of its participants. The treaty is designed to enhance mutual understanding and confidence by giving all participants, regardless of size, a direct role in gathering information about military forces and activities of concern to them. Open Skies is one of the most wide-ranging international efforts to date promoting openness and transparency of military forces and activities. The concept of mutual aerial observation was initially proposed to the Soviet Premier Nikolai Bulganin at the Geneva Conference of 1955. Okay, that's when it was established by President Dwight D. Eisenhower. Remember, I just read that to you guys. However, the Soviet Union's president and former Central Intelligence Agency Director George H.W. Bush in 1989 negotiated by the then members of NATO and the Warsaw Pact. The agreement was signed in Helsinki, Finland on March 24th, 1992. Okay, this treaty is not related to the Civil Aviation Open Skies Agreement. Okay, so, yeah, and so we already see this right here. And this is just the contents. So, if you guys want to look this up, take a look at this right here. And this is just related to the announcement that Trump made on MSNBC News regarding the Open Skies Treaty. Okay, this is, wow. Signing off, this is Morona Prophecy. I was saying something earlier, but
oil problem together. I think we have a very good relationship with Russia, but Russia didn't adhere to the treaty. So until they adhere, we will pull out. But there's a very good chance we'll make a new agreement or do something to put that agreement back together. But whenever there's an agreement that another party doesn't agree to, you know, we have many of those agreements around the world where it's a two-party agreement, but they don't adhere to it, and we do. When we have things like that, we pull out also. That's why with the arms treaties, if you look at the arms treaties, we're probably going to make a deal with Russia on arms treaty, and China will be maybe included in that. We'll see what happens.
you know they will if they can get them to comply. China's real rebellious.
And the other side doesn't adhere to it. In many cases, they're old treaties, old agreements. Then we pull out also. So I think what's going to happen is we're going to pull out, and they're going to come back and want to make a deal. We've had a very good relationship lately with Russia, and you can see that with respect to oil and what's happening with oil.
See, they violated the pact.
I don't know what it is because nobody knows yet. If it happens, we'll address that issue very strongly. So it looks like G7 may be on because we've done well. We're ahead of schedule in terms of our country, and some of the other countries are doing very well. It looks like G7 will be on, a full G7, and we'll be announcing something probably early next week.
Okay, stay tuned.